Hi there, welcome to the Raising Cinephiles podcast, a show about passing on your love of cinema to the next generation. I'm your host, Jessica Kantor, and I have worked in all facets of the entertainment industry for the last 20 years, and recently became a mom. Always remember that myself and guests are speaking from personal experience and not giving parenting advice. Let's go ahead and dive into the episode. Today I am here with the Nelms Brothers, Esham and Ian, who are prolific independent film directors, and their most recent film, Red Right Hand, is coming to theaters on February 23rd, and it is quite thrilling. It is definitely for older teenagers and adults, but I'm excited to have them on here today. Welcome, both of you.
It's brilliant to be here. Thanks for having us, Jessica.
Yeah, you're like my little disclaimer. So tell me, each of you, being that you're brothers, I'm very curious, what is your first movie memory? Either one could take it first.
Ash, go ahead.
Oh man, okay. So this is going to be kind of interesting and a little sad. Ian's got a great memory for our youth. My earliest movie memory might be
when you were 16.
When we were on, not that bad. But when we were on Iris, and I don't know, when we were on that street, remember we watched Terminator for the first time?
Dude, I'm pulling the same memory. It's hilarious you say that because I was like 4 and you were like 5, and it is such a visceral memory. I guarantee you we'd watched movies before this.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I sat around earlier this morning thinking like probably for a good 10, 15 minutes of like, what's before that? What's before that? I was 4 years old. I know I have memories before that, but there's nothing this impactful. There's nothing this impactful in my memory from that young age. Go ahead, Ash.
I just think we were over at the neighbor's house, and Darren the dad put on Terminator, and we probably weren't supposed to be watching it. I'm pretty sure, we were supposed to be playing with the other kids in the house, but that we just kept getting reeled into the living room. And there was all those iconic scenes that just blew our mind, right? With like Arnold, like cutting off the flesh from his robotic hand and all that stuff. And I don't remember being scared at all. Just
the
totally
eye in the mirror, the surgery on the eye in the mirror,
but just totally enamored and like I can't wait to see this movie in its entirety. Like, what is this? That's the first one I have. That's the first like serious like impactful moment in cinema that I have is Cameron's Terminator.
That's 4 and 5 years old, man. That's young to see those images, get them seared in your brain. Do you have a movie theater experience that you remember?
One of the best movie theater memories I have is there's this theater in our town, Visalia, called the Fox Theater, and now it's more of a
like they do plays and stuff like community.
They do all kinds of stuff there, right? Like it's more of like a town hall kind of, when some event happens, they eventize it there. They will eventize it there. It's been upgraded. It's got a bunch of modern technology. But when it was a 2-house theater. They had a top floor and a bottom floor, and there was probably, 800, 900 seats on the bottom, and like, I don't know, a 300 or 400 seat house on the top. And we watched everything there because it was right across the street. It's downtown Visalia, downtown Visalia. And it was right across the street from our dad's photography shop. Our dad was a professional photographer for 20 some odd years. The whole time we were growing up. That's the only memory I have of him until I was in my mid-teens when he sold it.
Of him either working or being gone working. And then Mom would take us to the movie theater and get like popcorn and red vines, we indulge the kiddos over some movies. Usually after she finished working at the shop, because she would work with my dad.
We would watch everything at that theater, and the two most visceral memories I have, they're older, but I remember looking at the marquee and Sex, Lies, and Videotape was playing there, and me wondering what that was, because I was like, that's a provocative.
That's definitely not one Mom's going to take us to, though.
And I was like, I feel like I was 8 or 9 years old, or maybe 10 years old when I saw that up there. And then I remember going and watching Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade with Esham, my mom, and I, and we were so excited because we loved the first two. We were so excited to watch that, and we got to watch it in that big theater as a family. It was really fun to watch it in there, and that's probably my best experience that I remember in there early on.
Yeah, the communal experience of
Yeah.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
It was awesome.
Yeah, Indiana Jones comes up a lot on this podcast. It really creates some good memories for people.
It's a movie that's highly entertaining that the whole family can usually enjoy. It's not going to like trigger anybody. It's just great fun. It's great fun.
It has like scary moments. It's funny. It's scary. It's thrilling. It's action packed. It's an adventure. It's mysterious. Yeah, it keeps you guessing. The characters are so well developed, and you just go on a ride. Yeah, I love those movies. They're so great. They really are.
Yeah. So tell me. So you're a year apart, a year and a half apart-ish. We'd have to be for like biology. So what was it like? Are you the only two siblings, or are there more siblings? And what was it like watching movies in your household? Who chose the films?
Yes, we are the only two kiddos. We lived outside of town. My parents love a rural lifestyle, and so it was either get along or be really lonely. So we've got along, pretty well. Still do to this day.
A half an hour outside of where we went to high school. We lived a half an hour outside of there, and in a different city completely called Woodlake. And we went to high school in Visalia, which was a half-hour drive in, and we lived on a 10-acre horse ranch by a river. It was awesome.
But we could walk into town, and that's sort of our you could walk 20-minute jaunt into the local town of Woodlake,
and we had a mile and a half walk from our house to the what then was just a cross street, right? It was a 4-way stop that had everything at it: gas station, movie rental place,
pizza factory.
Yep, the pizza factory,
arcade,
with a nice arcade in there. So but it was literally a 4-way stop. So we would just walk down there, get donuts, get about 6 movies, usually probably about 6 movies, and then we would just watch them all weekend.
That was the weekend ritual, and our parents would give us a nice list of chores that we had to get done, which would usually take
6 to 8 hours.
6 to 8 hours, and get those done, and then we would jet down to the movie the rental shop, get 6 to 8 movies, a box of a dozen donuts, and that was Saturday night and most of Sunday. Yeah.
And so what was the age range of this?
That was all the way from probably 9-10 years old to like high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
So most high schoolers are out.
Boys, huh? Yeah.
Most high schoolers are out raising riffraff. Ian or I are at home eating donuts and watching movies.
At one point, we'd rented out everything in the theater. After a few years, we'd rented out everything, or not in the theater, but in the cassette place that they had. And we started going into the Spanish language titles because there was a big Spanish language contingency in that town. And we found things, that were a little crossover, like Rodriguez's
El Mariachi or something.
El Mariachi, and a few other titles like that. But for the most part, we would pick action movies, because they're easy to understand.
Yeah, Ian and I do not speak Spanish.
There's the bad guy. There's the good guy, and okay, we're rolling into you had the tropes and you had the beats and the structures pretty well pat, so they're pretty easy to understand. But yeah, it was a great upbringing because, like Ash was saying, we're vastly different in a lot of ways, but what that did was really sync up our taste meter, because we would just sit there in armchair, the viewing experience the whole time of what we loved and hated and would change and do and not do. And
God, remember when we got remember when we discovered Army of Darkness?
Oh my God. Because we used to have, for those who are of our ilk and age, you'd rent these cassettes, and man, they'd have
2 or 3 little promos. Yeah.
10 promos, 10 trailers running before these things. So that was part of the fun for us. We would sit there and watch those 10 trailers and just be like, oh, we're getting that one. That one looks like it sucks. Oh, we're getting that one. Yeah, we're getting that one next time. When's that coming out? And they'd have coming attractions in 2 weeks. This will be out.
I used to make lists.
Well, we didn't get mentally. We did for sure. Mentally, we did for sure. And I remember when we saw Army of Darkness trailer on there, we were like, oh my God, like we have to get that one. And it lived up. It lived up to the hype. We had a blast.
And I don't think we had seen Evil Dead at that point.
We had not. We had no idea what Evil Dead was. It was the third one in the trilogy. Now we know. But for us watching that, it was incredible. That was such an incredibly toned and made film. They killed it.
That does, I do see some of that influence in
The early
humor.
Raimi. Yeah.
So, okay, I ask this question a lot, and obviously you watched a huge amount of movies growing up together. When did you really know your taste? Like, and what are some of the differences between? I mean, it sounds like you have pretty distinct taste, but what are some of the things that each of you sort of bring to the table?
I would say I definitely have a penchant, more so than Esh, initially, to go into the sort of noir thriller vibe. In my opinion, I will start ideas and scripts. Um, maybe if Esh isn't 1,000% on board, and I will start writing them, and then when he starts reading them and getting into them and making his contributions to them, I'll get 10 pages into something and hand it to him and go, "What do you think of that?" Something we've been talking about, and we've thrown back and forth a bunch, and that maybe he wasn't that inspired to start writing, but I was, and I'll start it on the page, and he'll read it and be like, "Ooh, okay, actually, I do like this." Okay, yeah, this is developing into something. Now that we've tossed it back and forth verbally a handful of times, and you've put something on the page, like this is exciting. And then we'll start talking it through, and then we'll just start tracking it out. Start working.
You also have a penchant more for like foreign cinema, like Korean thrillers.
That's true, but again, like what I love about those Korean thrillers, specifically, it's not only, but pretty specifically, that I think Korean cinema, especially their thrillers, are incredible at being progressive in structure and plot. You watch a Korean thriller from like 10 years ago, and I mean they're doing it now as well. But from like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that was the first time movies like that were being plotted out and structured like that were being done. And it was incredible. Things like Old Boy is probably what Americans would know most, right? But if you go back and watch things like Chaser, and there's one that's sort of in between that zone, but one called Yellow Sea, which is one of my favorites. And what Yellow Sea does so well, and is so why it's so exciting, is you start off with a mystery. It's a guy searching for his wife, trying to get into. He's trying to get out of. Was he trying to get out of China into Korea to find his wife, who went over there, stole across the border? Was shipped across, paid to have her shipped across early because she was going to start working as a waitress. She was going to make some money, send it back to her husband, who's like a cab driver, I think, and then he was going to come across later. And she disappears. She goes off the map, and he's stuck in China freaking out. And he's like, "I got to get over there to find my wife. I haven't heard from her in like 2 or 3 months. I've got to find her, This is how the movie starts out. So then the adventure of how he gets to Korea is unbelievable, filled with characters, filled with fantastic moments, grounded, but fantastic moments.
And I think that's the strength of it, right? Is it really, it's more character centric, those
Sure.
films.
You're so hooked into what happened to this guy's wife. I feel this guy's plight.
Yeah.
I want to get over there with him. That now they can go buck wild with how they're pushing the structure and how they're pushing the plotting and where this story goes. So when it turns from the guy to get over there, he makes a deal with a gangster that he's going to go kill somebody for his. And so he goes over there and he can't do it. He's chicken at first, and you're like, "Oh, this is the movie where now he's running from the gangsters because he can't kill the." No, he figures out a way to get it done, and he gets it done. It happens, and then it's like he goes and tries to find his wife, and she's missing. He can't find her, and he realizes she may have been killed. And then it turns into a completely different story altogether. And he tries to go back into China because he doesn't want to stay in Korea anymore. He's really kind of down on it because like his wife's dead, and it's kind of let him down. All those dreams he had and aspirations he had in Korea are now awash, and he just wants to go back to China and start over. And so he goes back to go back, and since he's killed that guy for them, they're kind of like, "Yeah, you can't go back." Like, and some guys they're waiting to go back as well, and he's like, "They're not going to let you go back." I think he says, "I think they're going to kill you. They can't have you running around." And he's like, "What?" And then all of a sudden, he's running from this giant gang of killers, and they have some incredible sequences as he's just trying to survive. And that's what the movie turns into. This guy versus a bloodthirsty killer, gangster killer leader who has to kill this guy because this guy is kind of his only link to that killing that he hired him for.
Yeah.
Man, it's such a great movie. It's so great.
I do think in contemporary American movies, we do sync up quite well. I would say probably I have a little more tendency to delve into like French New Wave stuff, like Godard and Truffaut. I don't think Ian's hit like the staples, but he won't go too deep on those.
I'm not like, okay, now I need to see 5 more of this guy's work that are probably not as great as the 1 or 2 that I've already watched in popular opinion, because I'm like, yeah, those are cool, those are good. I see everything I think I'm supposed to get from those, and I enjoy them, but I'm not like salivating for them. I don't have to go get more. Whereas Esh is more like, oh man, I got to go dive deeper into these.
I don't know if it's that more or less, but it's like I don't know. I guess it's like homework. Like I feel like I should know this stuff, so I'm like, well, I'm going to watch these films as like an education, so I understand what came before and what inspired what. I think like one of the movies Ian and I really synced up on early on is like Big Lebowski. That's a pretty common one. And then I think we really love a good Eastwood Western. I think Unforgiven stands out for us as a great, one of the more recent ones. And then
The Man with No Name trilogy, of course, like the Fistful of Dollars, Few More Dollars, Good, the Bad, the Ugly. Those are just unbelievable. I think those are just films you can watch over and over again and pull, cinematic flavors and, editing choices and pacing choices, character choices. If you're an actor, acting choices by Eastwood and everybody in the damn cast, really. Like the top 3 guys are so damn good. They're so damn good.
Yeah. But I will say, like, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jessica. Did you have something else?
Oh, no, I was just going to ask, and you could finish that thought before we go into the next question. So finish that thought, yeah.
I'll make it quick. But I think the light bulb moment for Ian and I getting into movies was I was going to art school for painting and drawing. Ian was wrestling his way through Cal State Bakersfield, focusing on his degree in literature. And we had a love for cinema, lifelong, but didn't really think it was a job, right? You got to actually get a real job.
We didn't know anybody making movies or writing movies or anything. I thought I was going to be a high school wrestling coach and teacher and teach English classes and write my own books on the side. That's what I thought I was going to do.
Yeah.
And then Ash was at art school, and I think, he went to school for fine painting. But he was very much into like illustrating and comic books. He's got all kinds of wonderful, crazy art pieces that he does, but he also really likes illustrating. So when we kind of came together, I was writing a script, and I was my last year in college. I was writing a script, and we were just talking on the phone, and he was writing a comic book and mainly doing the illustrations for it. And we just started syncing up. Oh, that sounds like a blast. And then this one night, I was sitting in my apartment watching like an up all night IFC type of thing. And there were 2 movies on back to back. And it was like one starts at like 11 and the last one started at 1. And we finished at like 3 a.m. my time. And I was profoundly changed by the end of those 2 movies. And I can tell you why, but I can't tell you exactly like why it happened with those 2 movies. And then I called Esham in the morning, and I was like, and we would do this on the weekends. We would talk for like an hour or 2 almost every weekend because he was in Kansas City and I was in Bakersfield, California. And we had just never really been apart. We'd always shared the same room growing up. We'd always been close. But I said to him, man, I just watched these 2 movies last night that just blew my mind. I want to talk to you about them. And he's like, that really? He's like, because I just watched 2 movies last night that kind of blew my mind. And I was like, well, what were they? He was like, I was watching this IFC up all night. I'm like, no way. He's like, yeah, I was watching we watched the same movies on the same night at the same time in different states. And then oddly called each other in the morning and had this massive paradigm shift. It was bonkers. And we knew it was bonkers at the time. And we still look back at it and go, how's that even possible?
So, wait, what are the movies?
You gotta know the movies.
Go ahead, Ash.
They are The Real Blonde and The Barfly.
And The Barfly.
Well, what was so outstanding about these movies is that it was the first time we were watching movies that you could see. You may not have been able to technically see how they were being made, but they were small and intimate and personal and effective and engrossing. and you were drawn into these little stories. And like The Real Blonde is about a struggling actor wandering around doing a bunch of stupid shit, offending people, but trying to be himself and really fucking everything up until finally he makes it by being himself and being a great actor, because he finally taps into who he really is and is comfortable with that, not trying to be who anybody else thinks he might be. And The Barfly's about a guy, a struggling poet. It's God, why am I blanking
Mickey
on
Rourke?
that? No, right, it's Mickey Rourke, but the poet. We're big fans of his work.
Oh, geez, we're not that big of a fan. I don't know who it is.
Yeah,
It's not Bukowski.
It's Bukowski. Yeah.
Bukowski. Okay, so I am big fans of his work. I got a bunch of books back there.
Somehow I blanked on that. We've read all the guy's books, but I can't remember his name.
I thought you were like, it's Robert Frost or something. I'm like, I don't know who that is.
And Bukowski apparently was infamous for bar fighting, while he drunken poet, bar fighter, decided to start writing some novels and is just absolutely brilliant at everything, writing poetry and novels. But those movies were so effective, man, that we could finally see, you could kind of see how it was being made in a way that you were like, oh, they have 3 locations and like 4 actors, you know what I mean? In Barfly.
Yeah. And you could almost see us hanging out with our own pals and friends. I mean, we could just take down what they're saying and like put that in a screenplay and then point a camera at it. And I think we literally just started doing that. Like we went out and we started just like recreating scenes from The Big Lebowski in the local bowling alley.
And making up fake commercials with like a $200 camcorder from Best Buy. And then reading this book on like, hey, how do you make this look less camcordery? And it was like, oh, turn all these automatic features off and do them manually and don't zoom, like walk it in, walk it in instead of zoom, and you're halfway there. And so we started messing around with those features and realized like, oh yeah, this does look a lot better. Wow, that's interesting. And then once you get better equipment, it actually looks really good.
Yeah. And so you just started making movies, and that's great, because my next question that you answered for me was, what inspired you to start making movies?
There's definitely a couple of stages, right? So that was the first step of like, hey, let's just make something stupid, or trying to make something that looks like something. And we started doing these like really bad in-camera effects of like, having one of my mom's chihuahuas with a little rope around its neck run around. And then we messed up the frame rate and then had Esham pull me with a similar looking bigger rope. And it was like it was dragging me around a giant chihuahua, which was hilarious. And it worked. The effect kind of worked. And we thought that was so hilarious that we were running around showing our friends at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And, obviously they weren't as impressed as we were with it. We were so excited that it actually kind of worked. And so that was really how we got started, is just showing our friends some of the stupid shorts we were putting together and getting really excited about it. But then we moved to LA, and the second inspiration came when, I think when you hit a major market like that and you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do for a living. We're going to go out and hard charge it. And you spend a year, I think we spent about 6 months running around with our normal jobs, realizing that, oh shit, there's 50 people that work here in this job, and 48 of them all are trying to do what we're doing. Like, oh my God, this whole town is just littered with millions of people who are trying to do what we're doing. How are we going to stand out? And then you start running into people who are managers and agents and assistants. And
I think what we did was like, let's combine forces.
That was another thing we did. We instantly, kind of made friends with a lot of people who were trying to do what we were doing. People that we respected and are still really good friends with and collaborate with today. So that's awesome. But the other side of it was we really quickly realized, okay, in about 6 months, like, we're going to stand out. We really, in our naivete, right? You pass a script out and people are like, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's all right. And you're like, well, the problem is we don't have a movie to show for it. Like, we got to make the movie. Then they're going to be like, it's not just okay. This is freaking brilliant. These guys are the Coen brothers reincarnated. Of course we need to be making movies, so you think your stuff's clever, and then you start making it, and you're excited about it. But then a year later, you realize it wasn't quite as clever as you hoped it was. You kind of look back on your stuff and you're like, get a little perspective, hopefully. But, and you try to improve constantly. But yeah, that was really what got us started, is making movies. Was when we couldn't sell scripts, and we're like, we got to do it. We got to make it.
Gotta just make it. So when I was in college, I think you'll like this story. I think I was a sophomore or a junior. I went to NYU. I was in Gallatin I was combining film and technology. And I had a good friend who was in Tisch. And we were, it was New York. We'd go out and party on the weekends. And we went to this lounge called Sway. And my good friend and I were there, and Quentin Tarantino was partying.
Amazing.
It's so my girlfriend, and being two kind of gussied up young women could walk up to Quentin Tarantino and he would talk to us. And at the time, and she was like, I'm at film school and I'm studying your films, and thank you for making them. And he looked at her and was like, why are you spending money going to college? You should spend that money. It's really expensive, NYU. Make a freaking movie. And then that movie's not going to be so good, but that's okay because you made a movie. And then you're going to make a second movie. And hopefully for you, that movie will be a little bit better. And he just kind of kept going on in that whole Tarantino thing with his arms. Of course, I got a question in and I was like, what's in the suitcase?
Yeah. He was like,
that was the end of the conversation. He was like,
whatever you wanted to be. Did he give you that answer?
Yes. I was like, oh, lame.
I'm sure in his mind he has what it is, but it was just cooler to hold it out.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, when you get that much attention off of technically a red herring in one of your films, like it's so much, there's so much more power in not giving away what it is,
Yeah. Yeah. But that was that always stuck with me, that just make work. And, it's part of what even having the podcast is just, I was coming out of maternity leave and I was like, I want to talk to people I admire doing the shit I want to be doing. And here we are. Yeah.
I can't tell you, Ian and I were actually just having this conversation today. It's like you get into a rhythm, and when you're, when we were in LA and surrounded by all of our young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed friends, everyone would be over every weekend. We'd be watching movies, having that communal experience. We'd all be talking about them afterwards, having those conversations, those intellectual conversations about what's going on in the film and that filmmaker. And life kind of takes over and you stop doing that. But I think it's such a critical part of making art, making film, of collaborative process. And you really have to continuously be feeding that.
So, okay, I'm going to ask one more question before I move on to the next generation of and questions about that. But when you have it seems like you love to watch movies. And so I'm curious, as you're, maybe we'll focus on, I keep wanting to say right red hand instead of red right hand. And I just keep mentally, that's why I pause, because I'm looking at the poster over your shoulder to remind myself.
Oh, is it backwards for you too? I can't figure out how to flip my camera, unfortunately.
No, it's right for me, but it's my brain is backwards. So red right hand, when you're prepping for making a film like that together, and this is a multi-point question, but what type of films are you watching to prep and prepare and create a shared language together as you're kind of stepping into being on set? And then I'm just really curious, especially with co-directors, of who does what? Do you make all your decisions together? Do you have, obviously you grew up together, you're brothers, so you have a shorthand, but how does that work for the two of you?
Yeah, I think it starts a little bit before that for me, because when we really try to direct on the page, to be honest, when we write something, and we didn't write this one. So Jonathan easily wrote it and he did a fantastic job and we loved the script when we read it. But I will say we did a little bit of a development process with him where we just said, hey, we were trying to step up the action sequences a little bit and try to have some fun and some things we hadn't done before. And then on the other side of that, we did a little pass after he did his pass on it and got it all. When we were making our pass, though, we're literally doing a director's pass on it. You know what I mean? We're going through there and being like, oh, this is kind of how we would shoot this sequence. And for us, that's what's syncing it up. And then fortunately, Esham is an amazing artist and he will storyboard every page, every frame of the film. So it's not just the action sequences get storyboarded. It's two people sitting across from each other talking will get storyboarded. And that doesn't necessarily mean it'll remain exactly like what's on the page, but it gives us a template. And when we move into that diner or we move on to that grassy knoll or whatever we're shooting on that day, we at least have a plan that we can start from and be like, okay, this is how we're going to shoot it. And then all of a sudden the actors come in and start saying, well, what if I walk over here? What if I say it like this? What if I pull up this bush and throw it at somebody? And you're like, okay, these are all really fun ideas. Let's start incorporating, So then you find the best scene on top of that. So it really starts for us really early in the script phase when we're writing it. Like, we're 100% on the keys, trying to figure out how we're going to direct it as we're writing it. How do we see it? We have to see it when we put it down, or we don't move forward.
Yeah, we're pretty candid and brutal with each other. Like if we don't like line of dialogue or something, we're like, oh, that's nonsense. And then we're like, well, if it's like this, and Ian will act it out. And I'm like, oh, well, if it's like that, like great, okay.
That happens quite a bit. Like Esh will write, because we're very different. Like I said, we're very different people with similar tastes. So like he'll come up with this line that's way out of left field in my mind, and I'll read it and be like, this line, like this is a different movie. And then he'll be like, well, what kind of movie do you think it's part of? And I'll say, and he'll be like, well, what if he delivered it like this? And I'm like, oh, that's pretty great. Okay, actually, and while he's doing this or whatever, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's pretty badass. Let's do that. Let's keep that in there. And then whether it's for some reason why it didn't read well to me the first time, or I just had some kind of hang up on the line that I had in there before, you never know what it is. But as soon as we kind of talk it through on some of those lines, but I'd say for like 80 or 90% of it, we're pretty synced up with what goes down there. And then we're just doing passes on it to make sure the grammar's correct and that verb is good. And I don't like that verb. We've used it 3 times already. Let's use a different verb. And I don't like that adverb. Let's use something else. It's a lot of changes like that happen, or restructuring the sentencing, or
but I do. And then the third part of that is like, for what we watched in the beginning, we made each movie with the same DP, fortunately. So all of our films have been with Johnny Durango. And I actually probably have the list of movies that we watched as like research for this one. But I will say, just as like inspiration, before every movie we watch Hearts of Darkness, a Filmmakers Apocalypse, just to kind of like just to know what we're going through. Like hey, this isn't just you. It's like every filmmaker goes through this, even the greatest on the planet.
I just made a connection of you looking at the marquee as a young boy, seeing Sex, Lies, and Videotape, and you just made a movie with Andy McDowell.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Like a pretty cool
all coming around.
full circle moment. My first job actually was working for her manager as an intern. Her first manager, Davian Littlefield. I don't think she's working with her anymore.
Okay. Oh, gotcha. Okay.
It was like
that's
a long
awesome.
time ago, like 20 years ago.
So every movie we have like these journals.
Well, Esh has these. Esh is our chronological biographer.
So I'm just curious. I wonder if. Okay, so for this one, we watched Drive, Nightcrawler, Place Beyond the Pines, Wind River, 3 Billboards, Mud, Hell or High Water, Green Room, Heat for the Shootout.
We should read that before any movie with gunplay, honestly.
Yeah. Like that's a few of them right there.
Yeah. And do you watch them or do you read them too? Do you ever just get the scripts and read them to see how they are on the page?
I actually just we rarely do that. Ash probably does a little bit more because he'll get scripts and he'll start reading them.
It's true. Like for Oscars, they'll give you the script and the movie. So I like to kind of do that once in a while.
But I recently read through. I'll read through the classics, and I mean like the Nelms Brothers classics, not a real classic. So like recently we're pretty deep in on a sci-fi that we're super pumped about, and I read back through Cameron's Aliens script, which we have a copy of that we got like 20 some odd years ago. So it's got coffee stains and it's bent up and torn up. It's perfect and beautiful. It looks like it was 40 years old. But so I read back through that script, and there's just a flavor sometimes, I think, and the way that he puts sentences together for action and description that's really amazing. And then it was really fun to read that script because I haven't seen Aliens in quite a while. And man, there's some really cool themes that you pick up in the script that I didn't necessarily or hadn't necessarily picked up in the film yet. And I remember just talking about that with Ash. I was just like, man, this theme is so hammered in the script, but really light in the film,
Yeah.
It's interesting what's on the page and what ends up in the movie,
Yeah. I love those, the Film Independent staged reads. I don't know if you've ever gone to those.
No.
I saw them read. Oh my gosh. I have mom brain of a toddler, so I don't remember proper names.
It'll come when you least expect it. Don't worry.
Yeah. It's a Tarantino script that he didn't direct.
Oh, so it's
romance.
It's True Romance.
Yes,
Yeah.
True Romance.
Romance.
Thank you. I watched. They did a stage reading of that
So
with Christian Slater and
Amazing.
Arquette playing their roles, reading their roles. But like you can hear Tarantino's voice in those stage directions, like, and the way he writes, like the kill scenes is how like their action kill scenes, because there's just so much freaking death in the scenes, are so thrilling. He really is like a thrilling writer.
He's great.
But I love those so much. I love reading how people get what's in their head onto the page.
Yeah.
He's been really fun to watch grow as a filmmaker, because you really see that kind of second half of his filmmaking. And just as an example, like in Glorious Bastards, where it starts in that house with that Jewish family, or that German family with the Jewish girl hiding under the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
That is such an incredible scene, and has so much patience for a screenwriter and a filmmaker to be able to be like, hey, we're going to get there. And don't worry, like, Christoph Waltz is going to be, chewing the scenery for 5 or 6 minutes before I reveal what the real reason is for this scene. Like that isn't something he was doing early on. You know what I mean? It's just really fun to see growth, confidence. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Really fun.
Yeah. It's, I mean, you could tell he approaches, like, just from what he told me and my friend, right? Like, every movie is an opportunity to do better, to learn from, to grow as an artist. Yeah. So for sure. Okay, I know we're like, you guys are very fun to talk to about movies. So I want to ask a little bit. So Ian, you have 3 children. Esham, no children yet. You're just a fun uncle.
Ian's already hit the status quo. Grandma's happy. I'm good. Like,
okay.
Mom's happy. I get to be the no kids for me.
So what is introducing movies? Wait, what are their ages?
So I've got a 10, 9, and almost 3, but 2-year-old.
Okay. So you're in it with me right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
The 2. Don't you see the tired eyes?
How many do you have, Jessica? How many do you have?
I just have one.
And he's 2?
He's 2 in a couple months. And like really does like movies, which is awesome.
Look at that guy. I love this guy's hair. What a cutie, man.
Yeah, he's got his.
That's what Esham's hair used to look like when he had hair.
That's how it all fell out.
He had a wonderful, like, angelic, curly blonde hair. It was amazing.
I know, it's amazing. And we're about to start potty training, so we're like in it.
Okay, yeah.
For what?
Swim lessons yet?
I was Googling you, and I did some, but you may hear from me soon.
I got some pointers and probably some videos I could send you to get you on your way. A book my wife wrote. It's amazing.
Okay, well, I may just, if you guys still do lessons, I may put together a class.
We dabble. We dabble
still.
Okay. We could do an underwater movie watching night.
We're training for the Abyss, really. The Abyss sequel.
Yeah. Splash.
Yeah.
So, okay, your kids are kind of far apart. You have like 2 together and one younger one. So what has movie introduction been like for them?
So the first movie that we showed Trayton, my 10-year-old, when he was 2, he got we were swearing we were good parents. We weren't letting him have any devices or TV time all the way till he was like 2. And then and I think we were still thinking like, okay, another month or 2. And then we're going to, start unleashing some cinema on this child and really send him into be the world's next greatest filmmaker. We're going to curtail an amazing, repertoire of films that he must watch religiously.
It's going to start with all the classics.
We're going to start with 7 Samurai, and we're just going to build up from there.
Yeah.
But I remember he got really sick one night, and it was right after Michelle, my wife, had our daughter. And so Michelle's like ninja mom. She's just like protective. She's just like, hey, this child is 3 months old. You're sick. The baby's sick. And I fear that you may be sick because, I've been taking care of the 2-year-old as she's been strapped to the bed with the 3-month-old at that point. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing a lot of the 2-year-old duties. So she was like, you and the 2-year-old are going to have to take the living room, because there was no other room at that point, because Trayton was sick. And so he was in such a state because it was the first time he'd ever really been sick, like really sick. And he was barfing and crying, and he couldn't get it together emotionally. And so I was like, Michelle and I were both kind of like, maybe try a movie. Like, let's try a cartoon or something and see what he thinks of that, And so I put on, I can't remember why it ended up being this movie, but I ended up putting on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which if you haven't seen that movie or the sequel, they are really well done. Like, they are so funny.
I haven't showed them to him yet. That's good.
They're so funny. Is that I put Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs on, and immediately it was almost as if he wasn't sick. It was unbelievable. And he was just watching with like wide-eyed wonderment. He was just so locked in from a child who literally, like couldn't get himself under control to work.
Power of cinema. Power.
And then the screen never went off after that.
we were still really good with the first two, and it wasn't until Jack the third. And we weren't terrible. We were good. He was like 18 months or something, and I was setting up a surround sound system that I have in a new place we had just moved into.
Oh my god!
My sound check movie, as I'm setting up the system, is Dark Knight, right? The Heath Ledger, Christopher Nolan movie. And so, because it's so loud and it's so awesome, sound design on that movie is fantastic. So I always know that if I can hear the dialogue and all the effects and everything that's happening in that movie, and they're working, they're synced up, and I can hear it all happening. Not that the dialogue's drowned out by all the effects, or vice versa, or the I can't hear all the effects and the stuff happening to the right or the left because it's so well designed. I'm like, okay, so I put it on and I just start hooking everything up, and then he comes in at like 18 months and he was mesmerized with this movie, with The Dark Knight, everything that was happening, anything that was happening, all the characters that were coming on board. And then every movie he saw after that, he thought was called Batman.
Right, so he says, what is this? You like Batman?
Everything that would come on, he would call Batman. He was like, he was constantly like, I want to watch Batman. I want to watch Batman. As an 18-month-old, he was like, I want to watch Batman. And so now that he's turning 3 and he's having a Batman dinosaur birthday party. And we have this unbelievable picture of him at like 2 years old, dressed in a Batman costume, where he literally looks like he's like in the film. We got him a really nice mask, and the suit, is mediocre, but the way that he is poised and posed at this little Halloween event, and some adults were like dressed as villains, and they all kind of crowded around him. Not necessarily Batman villains, but just spooky creatures. And they were all around him like this, and he's like this with like 2 sticks in his hand, like he was gonna like really fight them. And the look on his face looks like he's stepping into battle as Christian Bale. It's unbelievable. It's happened to be really lit well because like a street light's hitting him right, and it's a little yellow. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's the beginning of the rest of his life.
So our little one is literally Batman in his mind. I said, "Are you Jackman or Batman?" He's all, "I'm Batman."
With the whisper. Yeah.
It's so hilarious. He really thinks he's Batman.
That's amazing. I'm going to tell you a stat. You'll feel good about it. That I learned from one of my guests, that based on the research, experts say it's not about how much screen time a child gets, but the content that they're watching and kind of the conversation and world. So you don't have to feel bad about showing your kids movies, especially if you're present.
I'd love to hear this.
What about Blippi? Where does that fit in?
Blippi?
Yeah.
Oh, God. My son loves Blippi. Loves Blippi quite a bit. I have a friend who does some production for them.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was like, tell me when they're going to be around.
Dude. My son would lose his mind.
It's like a celebrity meeting,
Yeah, like she says, like kids, like they once filmed in a park, and like kids would just come out, and like he was so patient and said hi to all of them. It's the new Blippi though, like not the original.
Yeah. Oh, I'm into. I know both versions for sure.
Yeah.
Apparently, when he was doing his cross country road shows, he would do like some road shows, and apparently they had a few Blippis.
Oh,
there was a few.
Interesting.
There's a different actor doing Blippi.
Yeah, there's two of them on the series.
Yeah, every night before bedtime we dance the Monster Truck song.
Dude, that's amazing.
That's like our, for my son's second birthday, and then I'll ask my last questions because I know we're running up against time. I rented a movie theater. I rented the New Art on the West Side, and I
Oh,
got a print of the Red Balloon
Wow.
and showed my son and his preschool friends their first movie theater movie.
Wow.
what a great experience.
How did that go? Were they blown away?
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Like they walked around a little bit in the theater, but like my son, I have pictures like of him just staring at the screen with the light of the cinema on him and like the flicker over his head. Like it's awesome.
That's amazing.
Next year, I think I found out Moana 2 comes out just before his birthday, and he's really into Moana
Perfect.
1.
That's perfect.
So I might do like a first full-length movie because, the Red Balloon is short. But
Yeah.
I
Dude,
loved
that's awesome.
showing him a print, though. I felt so cool going and picking up the canisters.
Dude, you did it legit.
I legit did it. I was like, he only gets one first movie.
Yeah.
It was on film. It's amazing.
Yeah. That's how nerdy I am. But
awesome.
okay. So my last question, and what movie should I show my son so that he falls in love with cinema?
In my opinion, because we were just watching it the other night, and my little 2-year-old, 2 years and I guess he's 11 and some odd months now. He's like literally 2 weeks away from his birthday. But he loves Wall-E. And I think one of the things, it's not just that it's like, oh, it's a good cartoon from Pixar. I think why that movie and movies like it, maybe like the upper echelon of Pixar canon.
Yeah.
Why those movies I think you should show your children, especially early on, is because those are the movies that will appreciate in different ways for him or her as they watch them later on in life. And when they're, in their 20s or 30s and showing it with their first child, or when they're in their 50s, 60s, 70s showing it to a grandchild, they will get different things out of those movies, things that my mom got out of them, when she was watching them, things that I got out of them when I watched them, things that my kids are getting out of them now when they're watching them as children. It's just movies you can appreciate on different levels at different times in your life. That's a damn good movie.
Yeah.
And I would show them movies that are like that because, you watch something like the Tom and Jerry cartoons, from early on, and they're just silly and they're just funny. And it's not anything you can like overly appreciate, but you watch something like Wall-E, which is like cinema, like high-end cinema, as well as entertaining to a child. Man, those are some levels people are working on.
I haven't watched Wall-E with him. You know what? We were on a Monsters Inc. kick.
Those are great too.
Which is like, every time I watch it, I hear or see something else in it that I'm like, God, they layered this movie. Like there's layers to it. So you're saying I haven't watched that. Yeah,
that just comes from their process, right? Like having that hive mind, having all those creative people in there, just stacking ideas on top of one another, making it so dense.
Simple things, just like how they decide to move the animation, right? Because there's this wonderful moment, and I mean, this is like one of the more nuanced moments in Wall-E, but it just shows you how many levels they're working on. Like, there's the captain in the ship who's like a loss of a lot of bone density, plump fellow after generations and generations of humanity not walking and just eating shakes, and he says computer something or other, and it whips him so hard to the right in such an instantaneous moment. It's so funny. Or when it's like this thing jams up in his face and says, we need voice confirmation. And he goes, because it's the first time anything like that's ever happened to him. And it goes, accept.
Yeah. I have been hesitating actually with Wall-E. I was thinking about it and I really loved that movie. I'm like a sci-fi person, and like it's an intro to sci-fi for a young kid, right?
Yeah.
And I am like a pre-ET, and I'm nervous he won't sit through it, so I'm waiting.
It's possible he may not, but like my kid, he had seen pieces of it at school, and he had asked for it. He was like, "I want to watch Wall-E," and because he saw the thumbnail. I was like, "Oh, okay. Have you seen that before?" He's like, "Yeah, I saw some of it at school." And then we start watching it, and like last night, he made it They made it like an hour in before we pulled the plug, and we're like, okay, time for bed.
Yeah. It might be one of those ones where like he wakes up early and I bring him into bed and we watch a movie together type. So he's like, in a different state than like playing while watching, which is
Yeah, he's still in like a thoughtful, half asleep, kind of half awake state.
Snuggle up with mom watching a movie. That sounds
That's
perfect.
awesome. That's a great.
He literally says like, I want to cuddle and watch a movie.
Yeah. Oh man, what a little heartbreaker.
Yeah. I'm like, yes. And like he knows the things that melt me. He knows.
Snuggle and movies, and we're done.
Yeah, we're done. Okay, Esham, what about you? What movie should I show my son?
Oh man, I'm so naive on kids. You got to go with Ian's recommend.
It can be at any age. So like, let's talk a teenager. It can be when it doesn't have to be when he's a
There you go, Ash. There you go.
Okay. I mean, look. Oh my goodness. I think this was even on the notes, and I was just like, well, answer this, but I don't have kids.
That you did.
I mean, I think you got to put some like early Coens in there, right? Like you got to put Big Lebowski, you got to put Blood Simple in there.
Yeah,
those are probably when he's in high school. Got to put Pulp in there. So many great ones.
Pulp, man. I was a sophomore in high school, I think, when that came out, and I remember my best friends. One of my best friends, I had two best friends in high school, but one of my best friends' brothers was watching it. He had just gotten out of high school, so he was chilling at the house, which was really close to the school. And he was halfway through it. And I walked in from lunch. Joey and I walked in from lunch. And
eating a fried bean burrito with mustard.
Yeah. And I just stopped, was watching what he was watching just over his shoulder, and just watching it play out. And then it jumped to another sequence completely, which made no sense because I'm in the middle of the movie and it just jumps to another sequence altogether. And the sequence I was watching was incredible. And now we're launched into another incredible sequence, which for me coming into the middle of the movie, I have no idea what this movie's about. I'm so out of left field and both sequences are incredible. How the hell does this relate? What is this movie? What is this? And I was literally.
Do you remember what sequence you walked into?
I can't remember it now because I've seen that movie so many times, but, I remember being just absolutely transfixed for the 20 minutes I had before I had to walk back to school and being so like in fits of like, we have to watch that. We have to watch that movie. We have to watch that movie. What movie was that? What was your brother watching? He didn't know either. And like Chris, his brother Chris is like, oh, it's this movie called Pulp Fiction. It's really good. And then he just shut up and kept watching it because he didn't want to talk to us. He wanted to watch it.
I actually cut my hair because of the dark hair with bangs. I did that. I also remember I think I was the same age, like, I don't know, 14, 15. Yeah. And my mom took me to see it in theaters.
Wow.
And she thought it was a comedy.
Dude.
I remember looking at her being like, Mama, what's OD mean? But yes, I was blown away. I mean, I learned a lot about things watching that movie.
So good. That movie's so good. It's so crazy.
So good. But yeah, I remember going and being like, and I found pictures. Gosh, I was 14 because it was pictures of my hair like that. I went to Italy and I saw the pictures. But yeah.
That's awesome. That was epic, man.
Yeah, it was so iconic, man. That poster of her kind of like just sitting there on it. You're just like, I'm watching that. Like, I don't care what that is. I'm going to watch it.
That dance scene too.
Yeah. Smart. Did you ever watch the outtakes on that movie?
I have not seen the outtakes on that movie.
It's intriguing. You should watch it. Watch them. There's a few of them. There's one where there's like a video, like they're videoing each other, like of themselves, like a video confessional.
I mean, that's scenes they killed though, right?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, like the outtakes, right? And I think Tarantino narrates them all, and he talks about why he took them out. It's pretty fascinating. And you watch them, and you're like, movie's way stronger because these scenes are not.
I think I still have the DVD, so it's probably in the note. Like
it is in there. Yeah,
I just don't have a DVD player anymore.
Oh wow, yeah, that's the weird thing, right?
Yeah, I do have a DVD player somewhere. I had to buy one when I got into one of the guilds before they started doing everything streaming.
Yeah. There's something
this is
great
a really
about
fun conversation.
Setting the discs in the platter or like putting the tapes in or like I really miss it going down the video store aisles and having all the tapes out there and just you're only reeled in by the artwork,
Yeah.
So many chances because of artwork or just the synopsis on the back and the artwork.
So, okay, Ian, do you have a Tony box? Do you know what those are?
No.
I don't know.
So they're like, so kids don't have screen time. They're like these little figures, and you put it on a speaker, and it starts telling a story.
Wow, interesting.
It's good for a 3-4-year-old, just like
Yeah.
be in control of what they're listening to. So you don't have to be reading to them all the time, and they don't have to be in front of a screen. So I got one for my son because I was like, I'm really keeping the screen on all too much.
Yeah.
And I was like, why don't we do that for like our Apple TVs and have it like, imagine like having a figure for your film that was like a collector's item that was like the new DVD, and you could have it and you just put it on and you'd have your own. Like I feel like we need that, like that discovery ability for films, and it's not just our algorithm anymore.
I miss it. I do miss it. I feel like that would be a similar, like you're saying, that methodology or that version of a blockbuster that you have something that represents the film rather than a thumbnail that either arbitrarily comes up because of an algorithm or because somebody paid or got it on the front page. So you're really limited as to those libraries have some gems in them that you've never seen or will ever discover because they're not going to come across your
and like what's going to be what's going to be lost in this transition from tangible media into digital? Or there's already so many films, and maybe they'll eventually get there, maybe they won't, but you're already seeing a culling down of some like really great titles that just have yet to migrate over. And I'm like, wow, are we ever going to get these back? Like that's
I mean, because you have theatrical release of Red Right Hand, does that mean like they're running trailers in the theater? So like somebody gets to discover it like the way we got used to.
There will certainly be some trailers in the theaters for sure, but it's just not going to reach like it used to. There was something because it was a magical experience to watch those 10 trailers before your cassette or DVD kicked into the actual movie you were there to watch, and that was an experience all its own. Before I mean, like you see a lot of folks who grew up without home video were always talking about the nostalgia of going to the movie theater and discovering the trailers before the film. And we still do that now, but for the most part, you're probably pretty aware of just about everything that comes across the front of that trailer screening just because of social media and the constant bombardment. If they're going to put it out in a theatrical experience, you've probably experienced either at least the poster, if not the trailer by that point, because they start those way before. So you're like, okay, I've either seen the trailer already. Oh yeah, this is that movie with. That's what usually happens to me in a movie theater. I'm like, oh yeah, this is that one with like I'm on it, and there's usually rarely anything that comes across that screen up there that is a complete mystery to me. Once in a while, I'll see a trailer for the first time in there, and then be like, oh, this looks good. Oh, what's this? And then the title will come up, and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's the one that like I'll still have a reference for it. Whereas back then, it was freaking arbitrary at times because there wasn't any social media. You weren't constantly being bombarded by it. You'd have 10 trailers in front of these movies that were vastly different, and you're just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And if you trusted, like the old Miramax brand, if you trusted Miramax, which we did get in before we even knew what that was, we were like, oh, it's a Miramax movie. It's probably really good, like in our opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I interned there.
Did you really? How was that?
Just tell the tale.
Yes, please. You lived.
I lived. So I interned at Miramax when I was in college under Meryl Poster. I just remember being scared. Like I was going to copy the script and do it wrong and get yelled at. Like I was just so scared.
Oh, wow.
And I wasn't allowed to talk to people, whatever. And then I was an assistant at Weinstein Company early in my career. And I sat on Weinstein's desk a couple times. And my bosses were great. They really protected me from the craziness that we all know. But he would be traveling, and the assistant would have quit. And so they needed a tour with him, and they needed someone in the office. So he was unreachable. And I remember in like an hour, I answered the phone and talked to John Cusack and Clint Eastwood. Like they called themselves. And those are voices you know. John Cusack was like, hey, would you read my script? I don't know you. You're not in that office very often. And I was like, yeah, I'm not normally sitting here. I'm happy to read your script, but you do realize I have no power.
Do you remember what it was? Do you remember what script it was?
He didn't send it to me. I forgot that girl.
You should have totally faked it, Jessica.
Yeah.
Why don't you send it over, John, and we'll do lunch later. We'll talk about it.
We'll do lunch.
I've got his ear. Don't worry.
I've got some notes, John.
Some notes.
I'm still friendly with some of the people I did time with at Weinstein Company because, like, it was
Dude,
tough.
that's like a class. It's like, like it's like a serious
PTSD, man.
It really is. That's like a serious.
You learn some stuff, but I was like, he got away with so much crap because he had such good taste.
Yeah.
Just like, and like, no excuse, right? Like, he should have been taken down. That behavior should have never been accepted. But man, did he have some good taste.
Interesting too, right? I mean, you look back at a lot of the like fucked up, even filmmakers that there are out there in the world that you didn't know about until all of a sudden everything just kind of starts pouring out. And I don't know, there's definitely I'm so glad that a lot of these folks, are being reprimanded and taken out. But like I did enjoy being naive to it and just being able to take in the art. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Because I whether I liked the film or not, it wasn't ruined by the wildness of the character who made it. I don't know. A lot of times with wildness, there is brilliance on the other side of some of that wildness, right? Or that deviance.
Yeah. It's just a matter of how they express their wildness, right?
Yeah.
Keep it on the screen. Keep it on
Exactly.
the screen.
Keep it on the screen.
Keep it on the screen. Yeah. Well, listen, I know you have another interview coming up, so thank you. Thank you both.
Jessica. That was fun.
If you enjoyed the conversation, please don't forget to like and subscribe. New episodes release every Wednesday. And leave a comment and let me know which movie you think I should show my son. Until next time, take care.